Hello everyone, and welcome back to Nintendo Everything Refresh, the weekly show where we refresh your memory on everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. I'm your host, Nick Serpa. We have also got Nicolas Shade.
Hello everyone, nice to be here.
And we've got Luiz Estrella.
Hey everyone, a pleasure to be back here after being out for a week.
Yeah, no, it is all good. And we just wanted to quick PSA to everyone. We did mean to have an episode last week. We weren't able to get one up, unfortunately. But we are still trying to hit that weekly cadence. So we just want to make sure that everyone's aware we are still doing weekly episodes. Last week was just kind of a weird week for everyone, but don't worry, we're still going to be here pretty much every week. But as the stars allow it, we will be delivering you all the Nintendo news as often as we can. And it's a good thing too, because again, this has just consistently just surprised me since we started recording this podcast, that there really is something big every week to talk about. And in fact, this week we had like 3 different publisher showcases. Oh my gosh, it's crazy. And on top of that, so before we get to all that though, we got a little bit of Pokemon news. There was a new Pokemon trailer that I know Nicholas in particular is very excited about. This was a trailer that showed off some more of the story in this game and kind of gave a better sense for the 3 different story tracks. Which I know, Nicholas, that was something you were like very curious about when they first announced that.
Yeah, I have been kind of dubious about, let's say, most of the Scarlet and Violet trailers in the past. But this is kind of the first one that I think I just genuinely enjoyed, which is, it's a pleasant surprise. And I think the main thing for me is that this was the first one where I really felt like I got a solid glimpse of what you're doing in the game. Like, this is the first one where it really showed, like, hey, these are what these 3 specific story paths are. This is what you do. You go fight, like, the smaller Pokemon and then the giant Titans. You go invade these different team bases. It just felt... it felt like I just had a much better idea of what the direction they're going with the game is after this trailer, and that's made me definitely more interested in it than I was before. And I think the other big thing is that I've always felt, well, maybe not always, but I felt for the last several years, at least in Sword and Shield, that Game Freak's marketing has not been fantastic for Pokemon. They've always had a lot of trailers really spread out, where it felt like they were giving tiny crumbs every now and then, and they were never really providing enough details on the game.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Now with this, like, this trailer kind of came out of nowhere, but I really appreciate it because it hasn't been that long since we got the last full trailer for the game, so it just feels like they're kind of putting these out on a more consistent pace and just showing more of the game to us, which, is what I want. I want to see more of the game, and I want them to sell me on it.
Yeah, we have seen a lot of this game. It does feel like pretty much every week they're putting out some kind of trailer or some info on new Pokemon coming up. I will say that, like, after watching this trailer, I am pretty interested to see like how far they go into this, oh, you're like a student at this academy kind of setting and shtick. Like, look, I'm not expecting anything along the lines of like Persona, although I wouldn't complain if that was the case. Give me social links in my Pokemon Game Freak. But no, I mean, that was the big thing about the setting and the overall story that I was most interested in, and I'm starting to get a better sense now of how they're integrating that into the story. I think it looks cool. What do you think, Luiz?
I think it looks nice. I was also expecting to see this because I think on the last big trailer they were like, okay, there are 3 stories and there's the one with the gyms, and it was only that. So I was curious to see what the other stories were. And it's funny, I don't know if you guys also noticed this, but they basically divided the usual Pokemon story in 3 parts, right? We have the
pretty much.
the Victory Road stuff with the gyms, and we have the bad team, which in this case is Team Star, and you also have the hunt to the legendary and stuff like that. So They're basically dividing
So
the story
nothing
to make the
groundbreaking.
game less. Yeah, nothing groundbreaking, but to make the game less linear. But I really hope that those 3 stories have the same amount of story, or at least the same amount of interesting thing to do, you know? Because something that I'm a little worried is if we have the Gymnasio, which is the main one, and the others are just like side quests or stuff like that. So
Right.
I really hope they are fleshed out, and at the end of the day, I just hope that they have interesting thing to do, because this game is an open world. So I think this is the part that I just want to see a little bit more. What we have to do in this big area, in these big worlds, what the exploration actually is, besides just catching Pokemons. What are the interesting stuff that we have? If we have side quests or just big quests that are during the whole game, stuff like that. So I think that's the parts that I still want to see a little bit more. Just something interesting. Nicholas was talking about those trailers. I think one of the issues that I had is that all of those trailers have some really similar editing, the way that they show the game. I think this is since the Sun and Moon era, something that I found funny. They always zoom on the dialogues because the game has no dub, so they want to get the dialogues and they just zoom on what is written. So it is kind of. I think it feels like it doesn't have such an impact when you see the trailer. And because they are always showing just a small part of the game, it feels like we are not seeing the whole yet. But
That's
this
true.
was
It's not like
probably
a Xenoblade character where
Yeah.
they'll monologue for just the entire 6-minute trailer.
yeah.
It's not like any other modern RPG.
I mean, it's Pokemon, right? At the end of the day, it still is Pokemon, but we have the open world shenanigans on this one, and at the end of the day, I'm excited for the game for what it is. I know more or less what to expect, and I just hope that it is a fun game at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I think everyone hopes that. I'm still pretty optimistic about it, and honestly, with every trailer I see, and I see little bits more of the world, honestly, that's always the thing that gets me excited about just RPGs in general, is just exploring the world and seeing what they've built, and that's something that's excited me about this game from day one. And so every time I see a shot of your character running around the overworld and flying on one of those flying Pokemons that I don't know the name of, and it all just looks great. So I really want to play it. I don't know if I'm actually going to get to it anytime soon, but it looks really good to me.
Oh, and just a final note: what do you guys think about the new Pokemons that look like Mega Man?
I like them personally. I think they're the first designs of the game they've shown off where I just like them without having any reservations. Like, yeah, these
You're
look
talking about
cool.
those yellow and blue ones that I don't know the name of, that have the...
Yeah.
I like the blue
Rouge
one.
and Ceruledge.
Yeah, they're kind
Yeah,
of
you're right.
humanized.
Its arm... I actually totally missed it. Its arm really does just turn into like a Mega Man cannon.
Yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah, no, that's incredible. That's all I need. That's my whole opinion.
Yeah.
Oh man. All right. Well, if we get any more. Oh no. Yeah, please.
Yeah. I still have some reservations about the game. Ultimately, I still am worried about the scaling because I'm still not convinced that they're necessarily going to do that properly. And they showed off a new feature in the trailer called Auto Battles, which they went into a bit more detail on the website, but it's basically the thing where you saw the Pokemon kind of fighting each other in the overworld while the trainer was running around, which is the way they described it. It's basically when you have a Pokemon following you, you can tell it to go fight stuff in the overworld, or it'll just sometimes do it on its own, and you'll get items and experience for it. And on the one hand, that's kind of neat. It's kind of a way of doing the Arceus thing of, well, I guess just in general, the open world thing of, your Pokemon are doing stuff where you get to move around and do your own thing. But also, the fact that it's actual battles that are basically automated that you don't have a hand in seems a little odd to me. Just because, it's a big aspect of Pokemon games is battling, and you're kind of automating that to an extent, and I don't know how to feel about that.
To me, it feels like one of those new mechanics that at the end of the day people will just don't use that much, maybe. It just seems like, as you said, they are trying to bring that openness of Legends Arceus, but at the same time they are not committing 100% to it. So Yeah, I don't know, but maybe could be a nice way to get experience without getting into battles in a faster way. Who knows?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say I actually think it could be more of an accessibility feature. You know, like maybe you're playing this game with some younger kids, whatever, and they just want to run around and explore the world, and they don't understand the battle system. You know, it could kind of be designed with those types of players in mind. Is the vibe that I get, but
Yeah, that makes sense.
or just, you know, if you just don't want to do some battles for a little bit, you just want to go and explore and, you know, proceed unhindered, I guess the option is there. But yeah, I can't imagine a lot of people will be super interested in that, because most people actually look forward to the combat in these games. So
True. Do you guys have any thoughts on the? I think both of you have OLED switches, right? Already.
yes, I do.
Right. So I imagine you're probably not going to pick up the Pokemon one.
Oh, I will say, like, it actually looks pretty cool. I'm not you know, when it comes to like the limited edition like hardware, I always like the idea of it, but I never really find a design that is like, you know, like cool enough that I'm like, oh, this is like a cool representation of the franchise, but also like subtle enough that I don't feel like I'm just like looking at a giant sticker the whole time, you know.
I mean, the back of the Switch is literally the back of the Switch is literally just a ton of giant stickers.
Yeah, I was going to say I really like the design overall, but that specific bit of the back of the Switch, I love the dock. I think the dock looks really, really good. But to me, because I don't have the OLED yet, it will release in Brazil this month, so I'll probably get the white one. I still think it's really, really great. But the announcements of the Pokemon one got me thinking, they will probably make one for Breath of the Wild 2. And it will probably be beautiful, but yeah, probably gonna miss on that one too. But yeah, they are making a lot of those actually.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the most common thought I see on the internet in regards to these is just people hoping they release the Joy-Con separately.
yeah, true.
Yeah, and that's funny because I feel like the Joy-Cons are the least interesting part of the package personally, but.
In this one, nice. I agree with you because it is very simple, actually. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think it's just
simple is good.
Like you said, it's kind of a way of having that like aspect of the game without it showing too strongly.
Yeah.
Which I think is probably endearing to some people.
Yeah. It's a way for, you know, like when you're sitting on the subway, someone looks across at you, sees your fancy Switch, and is like, oh man, that guy's a hardcore Pokemon fan right there.
I mean, I have the Skyward Sword Joy-Con on my Switch because I thought they looked too cool, and I think that's basically, you know, similar premise.
Yeah, that's a great
True.
One. Yeah.
Oh, my apprehension with the other thing too is every time they release these like really cool Joy-Cons, I'm like, that's great, but then they're gonna start drifting and I won't be able to use them.
Yeah.
So I'll buy them and then I'll put them on a shelf or something, and I'll just buy a normal pair of Joy-Cons so I don't like.
I don't think
like stupid,
it still is that big of an issue. I'm not 100% sure, but in the new models,
think they've taken steps to fix it. Yeah.
I'm not hearing about it as frequent as in the past. I don't know if people just got used to this, but I hope not.
I haven't had any issues with my OLED Switch that I picked up back in February or March, so that's a good start. But
it is good.
I'm hoping it'll stay that way. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on because we got a lot of other big news to talk about. As I mentioned at the start of the show, there were several showcases this week from various publishers. Not a lot of Switch games across the board, but I think the one that is going to be most exciting to most of our audience is the Ubisoft showcase, because we got a huge preview for Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope, which is coming out. I would say it's actually probably their next major release at this point. I don't think there's anything else coming out between now and Mario Rabbids.
Well,
but
oh wait, no, never mind. Splatoon 3 already released. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, by the way, Splatoon 3 released. Don't forget, everyone. Go play that game.
Just a heads
up. But yeah, so Ubisoft gave quite a preview of Mario Rabbids. We got a look at one of the boss fights in that game. Pretty much a whole playthrough where there's a giant wiggler chasing down like a train that you're on, which just looked super cool. And we also learned that they are going to be bringing some DLC to this game after it comes out, and one of the DLC is going to have Rayman in it, of all things that I could never have predicted. Rayman is going to be in a Mario game. Oh my gosh, yeah. They haven't even uttered his name in, like, gosh, I don't even know how long. Probably close to a decade at this point.
Whispers in dark corners speak of the man.
Yeah. I think the actual gameplay that they showed was just so awesome to see how creative they are with these boss fights and the scenarios. And something that I love to see personally is the first game was great. It was a really good game, but you could see that there was some areas that they could expand. So I just love to see that they took the success that was the first one and they are trying to expand on literally everything. The game looks so much better, the scale looks so much bigger, we have more characters, the battle system is completely redesigned, it gives more freedom to the player. So, man, I just see so much passion on this project. It just seems that they really want to make a game that is better than the first one in every single way. And this battle, for example, with the Wiggler and the train is just so dynamic, so fun to see. Even if it is a strategy game, right? The scenario is always moving. There's always stuff to do. There's the enemies. There's the Wiggler by the side. So, and also the cutscene, the animations.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, yeah, like even though it is like still turn-based, it feels dynamic because they're getting rid of the actual grid, you know?
Yes.
So it's still turn-based, but I think that makes everything look and probably feel a little bit faster, a little bit more exciting. But yeah, but go on, you were saying the cinematics, those I mean, man.
Yeah, the animations are really great. I mean, the first one were already really great, but here it seems that they are even better. And during the battle, the characters have these special attacks, and they have special animations for that too. So overall, just seeing like the level of production quality, now that they proved that their idea is really great, because I mean, I would imagine that some people would, seeing a project like this with Mario and Rabbids in the same game, would probably say, I don't know if this is going to work. But now that they proved that they managed to get it to work, I think they are going with everything in it. It really looks great, and one of the games that did not release this year, and I'm really excited to play.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think just the big thing for me, like you mentioned, is just the scope of everything. The world itself just looks like it has so much more to explore and see. The first Mario plus Rabbids was, you know, it's a linear game, which I don't have any problems with, but there wasn't really a lot of I wouldn't say there was a lot of exploration. Most of the exploration was kind of centered around like finding puzzles that would maybe open up an alternate route, you know, or something along those lines.
It was really straightforward, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's still like fun to explore, but I mean, just looking at some of these wide vistas they're showing of some of these environments gives me the sense that there's going to be a lot more to do. And I had actually heard in some of the previews that I was reading is that there might even be like some side quests. So there might be other things to do in between your main objectives, which I mean, that would be amazing.
I mean, it seems that we have different planets to explore. So I would say that every planet has different NPCs, has different side quests, just like a JRPG. So, yeah. Right.
And yeah, and even just the little things come down to that. It looks like, you know, you might have a little bit more control of the camera now. I feel like it's going to make the whole thing feel just like this bigger, more immersive experience. Nicholas, where are you at with this game? What did you think of what you saw from the gameplay that was just shown off?
I mean, I think I'm in the same spot as you guys. I'm really excited for it. I loved the first game. It was an excellent proof of concept, but also just honestly a great game in its own right. And everything shown here, like you guys said, is basically an evolution of the formula. I'm really happy. The only problem I have with it is that it's coming out in October within weeks of like 3 other games that I also want to get.
That is always the problem. That is always the big challenge nowadays.
We have
it feels like
Nier Automata, Persona 5, and
Bayonetta, and Mario plus Rabbids, and I want all four of those, and like
Oh, God.
all four of them are longer games.
Bayonetta is
Well, I guess maybe not
right?
Bayonetta. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bayonetta, I would reason you could probably beat it in 10, maybe 15 hours based on the previous games, but like Persona 5 is not something I can get through in a weekend.
No.
I have this hope for this game because we are kind of lacking in the RPG area for Mario. We don't have the Mario and Luigi series anymore, I think. And the Paper Mario has shifted from the classic JRPG formula that they've been following. So I have this small hope that this one will have some nice characters, some good dialogues. I mean, the music, we already know that the composer from Mario and Luigi, I forgot her name. Oh my god.
Yoko Shimomura.
Yoko Shimomura, exactly, the Legends. She'll be working on this game. So I kind of have this hope that this will be a little more epic, a little more RPG, but it's still retaining some of the funny moments. So yeah, I don't know if I don't think the game has to fill that quota, but just a little hope that I have considering the position that we are right now with Mario RPGs.
Yeah, that's true. I wouldn't, even though the first game like certainly has like some of those elements, it never really felt to me like a full like an RPG, really.
Yeah.
To me it felt like a Mario game with turn-based combat, rather than an RPG. But I mean I would like to see them experiment a little bit more with that. That hasn't been the vibe I've been getting from what they've shown off. But yeah, it is a shame that we haven't really seen a big, Mario RPG other than Paper Mario, really, in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, Nick, I just need Mario to go on an adventure and to kill God at the end.
And that's just what I want.
To kill God. That's pretty hardcore there, Nicholas.
RPG fare. Just final battles against Shigeru Miyamoto himself.
I mean, Origami King kind of was
creator.
like that, but yeah, the world was made of paper.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah. So that game is coming out shortly, and I think we'll probably have a lot more to say about it as the release date gets a bit closer. So stay tuned for that. There wasn't a lot else shown at the Ubisoft showcase in terms of Switch. There were some big announcements in general. A lot of Assassin's Creed games. They announced like 4 Assassin's Creed projects at that event, and none of them are coming to the Switch. One of them is coming to mobile phones. It's called Assassin's Creed Jade, and it looks like it's taking players back to like ancient China, which is really cool. It's not a setting we've seen in a like 3D Assassin's Creed game before. We did get like a side-scrolling Assassin's Creed game set in China, but it's just a shame to me that like the mobile phones are getting this full. They're billing it as like a full Assassin's Creed RPG experience, like up there with what's been released on the consoles is how they're advertising it at least. And they're putting it on phones, but they're not putting it on Switch, which just feels like a huge missed opportunity to me.
Staring pointedly at Square Enix.
Yeah, Square Enix too, but yeah, I love the Assassin's Creed games, and I would love to see some more of them on Switch. We've gotten some older ports, but I really had hoped that at this Ubisoft showcase we'd see something else for Switch, and the only other Switch game they showed off was Just Dance 2023.
Yeah,
it's definitely a little frustrating because you'd think with 4 different projects they could have had one that's cross-platform with Switch at least. If not developed exclusively for it, at least have like some version on it. But oh well.
Because in the past Ubisoft like made an Assassin's Creed for the PS Vita. The 3DS received one? I don't think so.
They announced one at one point, but they never actually released it.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, but like it's a series with so much potential because with each game you can have a different part of history to cover, right? So it would make sense to give to one of those smaller teams to make a side-scroller adventure or just a small adventure in general, because we know that the Assassin's Creed games nowadays are very different. They are very open world. Since since Origins, I think it was the big shift in the series. So they could kind of try to get a little bit back to roots with some more similar to the first one games, really focus on parkour and stuff like that. But yeah,
well, that's what they're doing. That's what they were talking about in the showcase.
Oh,
so
with the new one, right?
Yeah. So the new Assassin's Creed game that's coming out the soonest, Assassin's Creed Mirage, they're saying this is not like a full RPG like our last ones. It's like a 15 to 20 hour experience. It's focused on like parkour and stealth and you know, kind of like hiding in plain sight, which is like that's what I love to hear. Like I like the newer Assassin's Creed games. I played a little bit of them, but they didn't really hook me because like I don't go to Assassin's Creed games for an RPG. I go for that stealth kind of experience. So when they announced that it was gonna be a smaller experience, I was like, oh well, maybe, you know, if the scope is smaller, they could get it running on Switch. But we haven't seen any gameplay yet, so maybe it's just wasn't feasible for it. But yeah, we haven't seen that same level of support that I would like. But you know, can't have them all, right?
Yeah, that's...
Who knows? Maybe.
Go on.
Who knows? Maybe Ezio will show up in Mario plus Rabbids as a character.
That's probably more possible.
There is probably a greater likelihood at this point. I would love to see a Splinter Cell expansion for the Mario plus Rabbids game where he just like puts on the Sam Fisher's goggles and just like
Tom Clancy's Mario plus Rabbids.
Day one purchase, honestly.
And to be honest, just something that I think the Assassin's Creed for Switch is probably immortal. So they are probably developing a sequel to that.
That's true.
That will appear on the
true.
Switch. So I think for Ubisoft, they are seeing that series as the one for the Switch.
Yeah, that's true. It just and again, I don't make games, you know, so you know, take my opinion for what it's worth. But like, when something like the Switch is selling so many units, it's like one of the best-selling consoles of all time. You'd think these companies would be a little more eager to like get on that money bandwagon and put out something that's going to get people to like that's going to reach that massive audience. So I don't understand why they're not doing that. But you know, who am I? I'm just someone who talks about video games, not someone who
Honestly, I'm surprised that they haven't put like a cloud version of Origins or Odyssey on Switch yet.
Oh, yeah, true.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't seem like those cloud versions have really been you know, causing people to line up, you know, with their Switches. People aren't super excited about those, so I can't
we should ask Square
that,
Enix how that's been going for them.
We should indeed. Square Enix, hit us up. We have some questions for you. All right, we got to move on to this other big showcase that happened this Saturday, actually. There was a big Friday or Saturday, I can't remember what is time at this point, but there was a big Disney and Marvel games showcase. It was the first time we've actually had like a dedicated Disney games showcase in, I mean, I don't even know how long it's been. Disney had kind of been out of game publishing for quite a while. You know, back during the 360 PS3 days, they were publishing all kinds of games, all kinds of experiments. You know, they had their own racing game. They had their own, you know, they were just funding all kinds of just interesting projects. And then that kind of went by the wayside. But the fact that they're hosting their own dedicated game showcase now, presumably as something that could be an annual thing, is exciting for people who like their games. And the big thing they showed off was actually, well, maybe not the big thing in terms of the whole showcase, but the big thing for the Switch was they're actually working on a Switch exclusive Mickey Mouse like 2D platformer that kind of has this like classic like hand-drawn art style. It's a co-op game, so it can be played with up to 4 players. Just looks really charming and totally out of left field. Apparently this was based on an older project, but I'm not familiar with it. Like, this was a huge surprise to me.
Yeah, it's funny. It reminds me a lot of how they had the, I wish I could remember the name. It was the 3DS Mickey game, like Castle of Illusion, I think?
Yeah,
obviously
yeah, it was like an Epic
different.
Mickey spin-off.
Yes.
Kind of thing, right? Yeah.
Possibly. I don't fully remember. I think there was an older like NES or SNES game that it kind of was like a follow-up to. Like
Oh,
a
you're
spiritual
right.
successor to.
You're right.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just kind of, Mickey platformer on a Switch, on a Nintendo exclusive, kind of gives me that vibe. But, neat. The multiplayer focus makes sense for the Switch, and it's charming in appearance. I'm a little curious about how they're approaching it from just a development or like a gameplay standpoint. Whether they're doing this to be like super accessible, not necessarily baby's first platformer, but still very much not a difficult game at all. Because it was a little difficult to gauge from the footage just what kind of platforming you would do exactly. But at the very least, it looked really charming. So
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the multiplayer focus may be a sign that this is more on the easier side. I think the character animations looks fantastic. I'm just rewatching the trailer here, but the actual scenarios, they look okay. It's a little bit of that look from Flash games in the past on the internet. So, but the animations are really on another level, of course. I think I'm excited for it, but I would prefer if it was a single player experience, just for the focus on platforming. It's something that I'm more, it would be a little more interested. But I'll keep an eye. The game looks interesting.
yeah, I wonder what it'll do in terms of co-op. If it'll be easily accessible in terms of, I mean, really, I hope it will have online co-op. And it won't be exclusively tied to local.
Considering that this is not a Nintendo game, I think it will have.
They've only mentioned couch co-op, but they did mention, like, as far as your question, Louise, about like the gameplay itself. They did mention that like there are like some puzzles, there's boss battles, there's excuse me, I'm getting over a little bit of a cold here. So as far as the gameplay, they mentioned that there's some puzzles. They mentioned that there's boss battles, sort of like standard platformer stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much the extent of what they've talked about with the gameplay. But honestly, like, the reason why I'm interested in this game is because it seems to me like Disney is experimenting, and they're experimenting with their IP, which, is... I wouldn't say it's anything like massively surprising for them. It's not like they're putting Mickey in a first-person shooter, although I would love to see them do that. But it's something different, and that alone I think is exciting for me as someone who does have some nostalgia for Disney characters and all that. I really just want them to make another epic Mickey game. I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, but I'd love to see it.
Yeah, no, same here. I think it's just nice to see Disney, which I think we even commented that about in an episode, but they have so many of those famous IPs, and I think they have to use them. And this one in particular, I like how it is like a callback, because in the SNES era we have so many cool Disney games like Aladdin, The Lion King, and all of those games, Castle of Illusion, all of those games were like 2D side scrollers. So I think it's nice to see that they are trying to get back to that, because a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia for those games, and they were genuinely great. So yeah, it's a good start. I think they even announced another game that is not coming to Switch, a more AAA game. I think it was a Marvel game. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. They did. They announced like a giant. It's a Captain America and Black Panther like crossover game.
Oh
that's set in World War II. Yeah, I mean, super interesting.
I think this one will be a game with a big budget, so they are really trying to get into this market.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And Marvel has put out a ton of games recently. In the last few years, there's been so much content for them, like Ultimate Alliance, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers, even though we know how that turned out. It's just a lot coming out of the studios.
But I think it's true, but I think those games were very like heavily on partnerships, like the Spider-Man game with Sony, Marvel Ultimate Alliance with Nintendo and stuff like that. So I think now it seems like Disney is actually publishing those games. At least it's the impression that I get.
More heavily involved.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and like on top of that, definitely worth mentioning, but Disney Dreamlight Valley, their Animal Crossing style life sim game, that just came out within this past week or so. And although the Switch version has had some technical problems, Dennis, unfortunately, I wish he was here because he has a lot to say about the Switch version. He was playing a little bit of it, and he said that the game was just an absolute mess before release. So I haven't played the Switch version. I don't really know how that one fares, but Dennis, I know, was not impressed, to say the least. But the game as a whole has been popping off, man. Like people are, it's like people have been talking about it on social media pretty much nonstop. It feels like, and it's seems like it's actually a pretty good game at its core. There's no microtransactions in it at this point. It's like a paid early access game. And that was something people were worried about with GameLoft. And they did say that when the game has its free-to-play launch, that there will be microtransactions of some sort. But as it is right now, it's just, you're buying this Disney life sim game where, as you mentioned, Luiz, like they're leveraging a lot of their IPs. They have like everything from like Ratatouille to Frozen to WALL-E. Like going back to some of their older stuff is really cool. They announced like some more worlds that you'll be able to visit during this Disney showcase. Like they're going to add in like a Toy Story world, and so it almost sounds like they're turning it into a Kingdom Hearts game, honestly.
Yeah, it gives a similar vibe. I only heard
is going to show up as a new character.
I only heard positive things about the game also. Yeah, I did not get the opportunity to play, but everyone that's been playing the previews and stuff like that, all were very positive. Which actually I was a little bit surprised because not that I was a hope the game to be bad, but I just thought it would be a game more of a cash grab full of microtransactions and stuff like that. I'm just surprised to see that it's actually a very good game from what people are saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think that level of skepticism was like totally warranted when it was first announced because, yeah, like, and not to bash on all the people who work at GameLoft because making games is hard, but, GameLoft does have a reputation for we primarily make mobile games, we primarily monetize them so that they're designed to have players spend a lot of money on, relatively insignificant things. Like, that's just the structure of what works in the mobile market. So people were worried about that. But as of right now, that's not how this game is structured. So I think that alone made the game much more appealing to people.
Yeah, for sure.
Also coming out pretty soon from Disney, they have their own kart racer coming out, Disney Speedstorm, which is a free-to-play kart racer that is kind of taking like a similar approach to Dreamlight Valley. Like they're going to have a bunch of different Disney worlds and characters. The big thing that they showed off during the D23 Expo was there's a Monsters, Inc. track and some racers. So that's just another kind of example of the type of like crossover style projects that they're doing, which is super cool, again, for folks who have that nostalgia for their IP.
Also developed by GameLoft.
Yeah, I mean,
also developed by GameLoft. Yeah.
They are on a positive note right now. Let's hope that they keep the trend.
You know what? Look, if it's better than Chocobo GP, that is all I ask.
Yeah.
Chocobo
I
GP
was with that in mind because that was a huge disappointment. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that was pretty much all the big stuff from the Disney showcase. There were some smaller things, some new characters coming to the Lego Star Wars Skywalker saga, and just some miscellaneous things. Oh, I'm sorry, I need to mention this. There's a Tron game coming out that they announced. They didn't announce which platforms it's for, but I freaking love Tron, and it looks so cool. It's they're describing it as like a graphic novel style like adventure, like in the Tron universe. Like that's just so cool. Like I don't know why they're making it now, but I'm here for it. But yeah, those were most of the big things from that showcase. But believe it or not, there was another showcase this week. This was NIS America's showcase, which was more just like it's kind of a pretty straightforward live stream. Nothing as flashy as the Disney thing for sure, but and they announced a couple games there. But I think the one that people are going to be most excited about is Grim Grimoire Once More, which is a remake of the original Grim Grimoire, which is a Vanillaware game. For those who are familiar with their games, they're kind of known for their hand-drawn art style just being very distinct and just very pleasing to look at. But also having just these very polished 2D, platforming experiences. They're all a little different from each other. And yeah, I haven't played Grim Grimoire, but it's one of those games that is kind of Vanillaware fans are always talking about it.
Yeah, I'll certainly try it out. I'm not usually one for RTSs, but I like what Vanillaware tends to put out, and I've never tried the original, so I'm definitely open to seeing what this one's like. It's also just, I love the fact that this just exists, because I want more Vanillaware stuff on Switch. They have such a huge back catalog of fantastic games, several of which you kind of have a hard time playing nowadays. Like Muramasa the Demon Blade, which is my personal favorite, is on Wii and on Vita. So, please, I would love for games like that and Odin Sphere to be ported onto Switch. And I really hope that happens.
It's not too late, Nicholas. You could just go get a Vita.
Well, I have the game on Wii, but I want it on Switch.
There you go. Yeah. No, I don't blame you. So yeah, I've never played an RTS that is from this like side-scrolling perspective. It looks a little strange to me, to be honest. Like, I don't really understand how it plays. I mean, the art style is really cool. I like the setting. I like the overall premise of it. You're like at a magic school that is, there's like weird time mysteries going on, and all these mythical creatures coming into the school. So it's kind of cool, but yeah, I don't really know how it's going to play from a gameplay perspective.
Right.
Have you played Grim Grimoire, Nicholas?
I haven't.
The original version?
There were a ton of Japanese gameplay videos that released, so I ended up writing some articles for several of them. So I saw a good amount of the game in motion. Because all the UI was in Japanese, I could not tell you exactly everything that was going on. But, it seemed just kind of RTS-like. You have control over, I think the screens both scrolled left to right and up and down in terms of how the levels were laid out.
Yes.
It's definitely something where I would need to see more of it in action with, like, a language I understand to be able to get a solid grasp of how everything works.
Yeah, I was watching the trailer right here, and I couldn't understand how the game works. But also because they basically don't show a lot of gameplay, it's more of the art. The art is pretty good. I mean, it has that nostalgic feels of old anime and stuff like that, and it seems very fantastic and creative. But yeah, the gameplay aspect, I think it's probably the part that people are more the fans like it more, and I think it's one of those cases that only when you actually play you will get to understand how it works.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be one of those things I'm probably going to wait to see what other people think about it before I can really get too excited about it myself, just because there's so much other stuff to play, and when there's something that I have a hard time wrapping my head around, I'm like, I'll wait and see on that one. But yeah, there were a couple other games announced at this NIS showcase. None of them looked particularly interesting to me, but I'll mention them here. So we have one called Monster Menu, which is a strategy RPG, and the idea is that you are it's an RPG, but you can eat the monsters that you defeat, or you can use their meat to cook meals, which is kind of dark, but it's certainly unique.
I think there was an indie game that came out that was in an indie world showcase a few months ago that had a similar premise. It was like part
there was
part monster hunting, part like puzzle game, cooking game.
Yeah, that one is called Dungeon Munchies. I don't know. I guess is it trendy to eat your enemies now in like RPGs? I don't know.
Yeah, man, it's
do you have to do that
thing.
in Xenoblade?
Well, actually, there is the cooking mechanic. So.
Well, there you go. Yeah, this is basically let's make a whole game around this cooking mechanic, which could be interesting. Yeah. I only have so much bandwidth for strategy RPGs in a given year, and this one doesn't look like it's doing anything like the gameplay itself doesn't look phenomenal. So I'm like, cool premise, but I might skip that one. We've also got they revealed a more story focused game called Process of Elimination. That title just makes me laugh because it makes me think of like math class for some reason. But it's a detective story basically. It's a visual novel. Seems like they're kind of going for like a zero escape Danganronpa style experience. Like it kind of falls into that subgenre. But there's also some strategy elements, it looks like, to the gameplay. So a lot of stuff for strategy fans. If you like strategy games, you like your grids, you like you're waiting for other people to do things before you can do things. If that's your jam, then go watch the showcase because there's quite a bit.
I really want to hear you pronounce the last one.
Oh no. Yeah, there's like too many. There's like an asterisk in here. There's parentheses. I think it's actually Void Terrarium 2 is like the actual title, but it's not spelled that way at all. It's spelled Void Terrarium 2. Parentheses.
Open parentheses, close parentheses, semicolon.
/
Imagine recommending this game to a friend. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like, I can't actually pronounce this game to you, but
I assure you it's pretty good.
Let me write this down for you. Yeah. Yeah, I never played the first game, but I know it has its fans. I don't have that much to say about it. There are so many games coming out right now that like I have to like dedicate a certain part of my brain to like the big ones and like the really cool indies, and then everything else just kind of exists in this third part of my brain that's like, oh yeah, that exists, and that's probably where this is gonna fall for me, unfortunately. Sorry, Void Terrarium fans. Whatever. Anyone else have anything to say about the NIS showcase? Do you guys feel like there were enough showcases this week?
I just want to mention that it's always nice to see those Japanese games being localized, and
yeah.
For
sure.
Those publishers, those companies like Nihon, like NES, I always hope to see their new. There's a series that I really want to get into, which is the Trails series from JRPGs, but a lot of the most important games are not in the US yet. So every time that I see new games being localized from those small companies, that's the right step forward. Let's hope that this becomes something more usual.
Well, there are some more Trails games coming, like down the pipeline for you, Luiz. Like Trails from Zero, I think, is coming out in October.
Yeah, I think it was one that never was released in the US, and they're finally releasing. But that's like a trilogy yet for them to release. So, yeah. I hope
they have quite a few games coming, but yeah, they're still catching up. It seems like, which localizing these big RPGs is a lot of work, I'm sure, for these smaller studios. But yeah, all right. The one more thing we want to get to in this week's show, that if you are listening to this on Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, it might have already happened, so this might not be relevant to you. But there have been ongoing rumors that there is a Nintendo Direct coming imminently, and it makes sense because it is September. As Nicholas has pointed out in the past, we've gotten Nintendo Directs pretty much every September for, gosh, how long has it been now, Nicholas? What, like?
At least since the Switch has released. I think maybe a couple of years before that, so at least 6, 7-ish, maybe?
Yeah, I think you're right. But yeah, it's seeming very likely. There are a lot of rumblings that there is going to be a Nintendo Direct coming soon. And some people have even gone so far as to say what they think will be in it. The big thing that people are rumoring about is that we're going to have a Zelda blowout. Probably just beyond news of Breath of the Wild 2, which seems like a given if they're going to do it. But they're saying we're also likely to get ports of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess to Switch. Which is funny to me because it feels like, why didn't they just do this last year when they were doing all the Zelda anniversary stuff? But who knows? I don't know. I think it's likely though. I could see that happening.
No, me too. I think that's probably the right time for that. And I think because we have this trend of receiving something related to Zelda every single year, and this year we were hoping at the beginning of the year. Now it seems like a long time ago, but we are hoping to see Breath of the Wild 2 still releasing this year. But then the game was delayed, and it's been a while since. I think usually it's Jeff Grubb that mentions this rumor that Nintendo has these games that are basically ready, and they are just waiting for the right moment to release it. So I would imagine that those remasters are probably a no-brainer for Nintendo to release them on Switch, and they are just waiting for the right moment.
Yeah.
And seeing
Well,
how
Luis, I'll tell you when the right moment is. The right moment has passed. The right moment was like last year was the right moment. That's what I think.
The anniversary. Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
For some reason, never came out.
It just seems so odd to me if they are releasing them this year that they would wait so long for it. Because at this point, if Breath of the Wild 2 does not get delayed and it's still on I think spring 2023 is what it's currently slated for. Like, assuming that's a March release, which would line up with it coming out about 6 years after the original, we would have 3 Zelda games releasing within a span of 6 months, which is just a lot. And I don't feel like they definitely had some bigger titles earlier in the year, but I still feel like there's some gaps where they could have fit in the Zelda remakes or the Zelda ports in there somewhere. Like, I don't think they necessarily had a big release in July. They probably could have done something in like April. I don't know. It's just odd.
Do you guys think that it's going to be a package with both games for $6?
If both of them are getting released, if they're releasing both of them in this time span, I have to imagine yes, because I have a hard time seeing them release 2 separate $60 Zelda remasters that are both coming out like within the same.
That would be weird.
Few months.
Yeah.
But
it would be weird, but also not the strangest thing they've ever done.
Yeah,
so.
That's true. that also doesn't fit Nintendo's MO of like actually, giving us a good deal on stuff. So
right. Well, they would say, of course, yeah, of course it's a good deal. You get to play these games again on a modern system. That's worth $60, and maybe to some people it is, but I'll just say this.
I really want to play Wind Waker Portable. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people do. I do too, but I in particular would have a hard time being sold on it because with the Wii U eShop closing down, I actually went and I just recently purchased the Wii U ports of Wind Waker and Twilight Princess because I wanted to make sure I had a way to play them in the future. There's never a guarantee that Nintendo is going to re-release these games, and so I was like, all right, well, I'll pick them up just in case. So, I mean, luckily I was able to get them for fairly cheap. I think Twilight Princess was $50, but I think I might have them switched around. But I think Twilight Princess is like $50 on the Wii U eShop, and I think Wind Waker was like $20 or $30. I could be wrong about that, but
I think Wind Waker was a select, so the price was reduced.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So that's the other thing too. Like, I mean, I guess if they're releasing them after March 2023, then people won't have a choice. But yeah, if they're gonna try and sell them as full $60 games, that might be a hard sell for folks.
Yeah, I
Or
think
maybe
they
not.
separated. I'll probably not buy, at least not at launch. But if are both of them together, I think it's a good deal.
yeah. Oh, at that point, definitely. Honestly, like both of them are
Especially if
really
they-
good Zelda games. So
Well, and especially if they put them together as like a nice little collection, like they did as Mario 3D All Stars, where they maybe have like some bonus stuff, like maybe they have some
well-
behind the sines. Well, I'd like to see more than what they did with All Stars.
I was
for
gonna say,
sure,
I would
but, like,
argue with your definition of 3D All Stars being a good little collection. But
No, but just like if they bundle them together, but they also put in like maybe I don't know, like developer
Like extra
commentary
presentation and whatnot,
or,
yeah.
And we know
Yeah, that would be nice.
Wind Waker had some frame rate issues on the Wii U. Nothing crazy, but the game definitely got to some of the 20 FPS and some huge moments. So I think overall we would just get a better overall performance for those games. And Wind Waker is probably one of the best remasters that Nintendo ever did, at least in my opinion. I know that some people are not a big fan of the difference in the lighting and stuff like that, but for me it's a beautiful, beautiful remaster. Yeah. So
I mean, it's excellent.
Yeah, that game is just timeless in terms of its visuals.
True,
I don't think it'll ever look bad. Well, and on top of the Zelda stuff, what else would you guys like to see? I mean, I think there's a lot. that they could announce and could show off. I think for me, the big surprise that I'm going to say this, no one would have predicted anyone would want to see this in a Nintendo Direct, but I really want to see what they're doing with the Metroid Prime games. I want to see if they're working on that rumored remake of the first one. I want to see if they're just working on a trilogy port. That would be fine with me. I want to see something from Metroid Prime 4, even if it's just like, we're going to show you 30 seconds of gameplay and that's it. That would be enough.
Get second title drop.
Yeah, give us the title, show us something from In the Engine, I'll be happy, But what about you guys?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm relatively satisfied right now. Like, I guess the thing I would want to see most is Breath of the Wild 2, but I'm pretty confident that's going to be shown, and I don't really have too much more I'm expecting other than that, so I think, honestly, the next thing I want to know is just details on Xenoblade Chronicles 3's second wave of DLC. But, I mean, bit of a boring answer, but, I want to play that game more.
Well, their expansions are pretty much full games in themselves at this point, so,
yeah.
I mean, I don't blame you. Yeah, that's... might be a little soon for that, considering most people might not have finished the game yet, but...
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, I don't mean the big story expansion that's coming out of next year. I'm just, whatever the small little content we're getting in the second wave, I think that will be the challenge battle mode and a new character. Just, little thing, I guess, but that's kind of what I'm looking forward to with the game at this point, just because they really hooked me, as has been pretty obvious, I think. So, yeah, I think that.
Got it. I think that's a good... I think we could see that, for sure. I think that's a good safe pick. What about you, Luiz? Is there anything in particular that you're like, if I saw this, it would make the whole presentation for me?
I'm not sure, because I think I share a little bit of Nicolas' opinion of being satisfied. I think because we already got Xenoblade 3, we know that Breath of the Wild 2 is going to show up, at least I hope so. And those are probably the biggest one. I think I want to be surprised with a series that I'm not expecting. I want to be... Pikmin 4, I think would be the one Pikmin, that... Yeah. But I feel that I'm saying Pikmin 4 in the last 10 directs that we had, so... But it's a game
Well, they still haven't listened to you, have they, Luiz? So,
yeah.
I mean, you get
New Golden Sun.
Yeah, something like that, but just something out of the left field. I think it's something that I'm expecting. Not necessarily a big game, but a game to be there in the middle of the presentation, because we are at a point on the Switch Live that a lot of Nintendo's big names are already covered. We already have Metroid, we have Mario Party, Mario Tennis, Mario Golf, Mario Kart, almost all of the Mario spin-offs. So I think it's the time to look at those forgotten franchises, those forgotten games that we want to see back. And I think that they've been doing that. We saw Mario Strikers, Advance Wars, WarioWare. So I kind of want to see more of that. Those series that Nintendo maybe did not give a lot of attention in the recent years.
Yeah. Maybe a Star Fox or...
Yeah, Star Fox would be great. Although I guess we did kind of get that with Starlink, but that wasn't really a proper Star Fox game.
Yeah.
But, yeah. No, I love being surprised. And yeah, we really have seen most of their big franchises that seems like most people care about the most. Obviously, there's a lot of IP that they could bring back. You guys remember when there were all those crazy rumors about they're making the Star Fox F-Zero crossover that's like Star Fox Grand Prix. And people were so confident that this was a real thing, and it just never got revealed. Bring back Star Fox Grand Prix, Nintendo. Make it real. Make it happen.
Make it real. Make the rumors real.
Exactly.
I don't know if you guys were following the news, but this Direct in particular, the rumors were really funny, because at first they said that it was going to happen, but then they said that it would be delayed because of the Queen's death. And then a day after they say, no, it's actually going to happen. So
only a few hours later, it was like, yep, never mind.
I wonder who got the rumor that the Queen was affecting the Direct.
Well, I could sort of imagine them not wanting to, quote unquote, compete with that kind of news cycle. But I'm also just kind of wondering, because at the time that the Queen's death was announced, I would assume most of Japan probably would have been, asleep or not like super active. So I'm wondering if on the spot maybe like Nintendo of Europe was kind of getting ready to delay it just in case, and they were waiting for the word from Nintendo of Japan, and then when Nintendo of Japan got up to like, no, we're leaving it on. Come on.
I mean, it's not unprecedented. I think there was a time that a
Yeah.
direct was announced, and then I think a tragedy happened in Japan. I'm not
Yeah,
sure if it was an
earthquake.
earthquake. Yeah, and they delayed it, so it's not unprecedented. But I don't see specifically right now, and because it's not even in the same week, so I don't see why they would delay in this specific case.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame them if they did. I mean, it is
Yeah.
a huge thing for a lot of people. So, and they do have precedent for doing that. You mentioned Advance Wars earlier, Luis, and we still haven't heard about that because
Yeah.
when the war in Ukraine was heating up, they shelved that one.
Hopefully not
Understandably so,
shelved.
but
God, I hope.
Yeah,
well, I mean, but they did, like they shelved it temporarily
Well, yes.
until a better time. But yeah, we haven't heard anything about that game since that happened. So
Yeah.
I don't know, but all right. Well, that wraps up our news for the week. But before we go, we're gonna head into everyone's favorite segment, which is what has everyone been playing. And Louise, we haven't heard from you in a little while. Let's start with you. What have you been playing lately?
I'm trying to remember. I finished Xenoblade, but I think it's been a while already. I think I finished in the 2 weeks ago.
Okay, yeah.
It was great. At the point this podcast is live, I think the discussion that I did with Nicolas will already be live. So anyone interested in knowing our overall impressions about the game, which are more complex than you might think,
A deep dive.
Can hear the conversation. But I think during this week I was mostly playing some multiplayer experiences. I played Mario Kart, Switch Sports. Some of my friends came on the last weekend, but I actually didn't got to start any new game. I'll do something different. I would say the game that I'm planning to start, now that I finished Xenoblade, I'm planning to start the Yakuza series. I was looking if I should start with the first one or with the Zero, and I think it's best to start with the Zero. At least I heard that the first one references to Zero a lot, even though Zero was released after. So I think I'll start with that one.
I would recommend it. I would recommend starting with Zero because the main reason being, like, it's a prequel, but also Zero is a newer game, like, mechanically. And so if you play Kiwami for the first time, which is like the remake of the first game, it's a good game, but it still feels kind of dated, and it's not the best representation of like where the series is now. Whereas Zero will kind of like give you something to look forward to when you get to like 4 or 5 or 6 in the series,
Yeah, I heard stuff like that. That the first one still has a little of that PS2 vibes because it's an older game, even though it's a remaster. So I'll probably start with Zero. I'll download it on the Game Pass today and see because I was always really interested in the series, but because there are so many JRPGs, I was also a little afraid to start. But I want to play at least Zero right now, just to get what it is all about.
Yeah, you're in for a good ride. And people say Zero is a lot of people's favorites out of the entire series. So,
cool.
I haven't played all the Yakuza games, but I've played all the way up to 6. I need to play 6 next.
That's a lot.
They're all, yeah. I mean, granted, it's been over a pretty big period of time, but
right.
they're all pretty similar in a lot of ways. But they also all bring in like some new twist or some new element. Take you to a different city or introduce some new characters or. So they're definitely the type of games that like playing back to back, it's pretty easy to get burned out. But over time, like they're just really good games. So I'm glad you're trying them out. I think you're gonna love them, honestly.
I'm excited. Yes.
Well, cool. Well, let us know how that goes. What about you, Nicholas? What have you been playing lately?
Nothing super exciting, to be honest. I played a little bit of Xenoblade 3, just every now and then going back just to do some
As
more.
always.
Well, yeah. I do want to complete the game. So getting like all the gems, maxing out all the characters, that kind of stuff. So just going back here and there. But nothing super big. I was not able to pick up Splatoon 3 this week. I'll do that within the next few days. But I guess in preparation for that, I've been playing a little bit more Splatoon 2 before, I inevitably drop it forever. So, kind of just that, getting back into the flow of things. I imagine they'll probably help for once I actually get my hands on Splatoon 3.
Yeah. No, that's a good call. I was thinking of doing that. That was kind of why I think I mentioned this in the previous recording, but we didn't air that, so I'll mention it again here. But yeah, I was doing a similar thing. I played through Splatoon 1 because I had that game sitting on my shelf for a long time, and my whole experience with that franchise was just playing a little bit of Splatoon 2 during their betas, basically. And yeah, like playing after I played the first one, I was like, wow, this is getting me excited to see what they're doing in the new one. And reviews are out now, and it's not like a drastic departure, so I don't feel like it's something I need to pick up right away or anything. But yeah, it's always nice to go back and play an older entry in a franchise that you love, and get your brain ready for what's coming next.
Yeah, I remember Splatoon 1 having a really fun single player. I think I enjoyed it more than Splatoon 2's.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I binged it in 2 nights, which, I mean, it's not a massive single player campaign, but that second night, I was up till 2 a.m. I was hooked. I was like, oh, I need to finish this. It's so good.
Oh, yeah, that final boss is so
final
good.
Boss.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite final bosses in a video game. It's so good.
True.
I might be with you. It was tough, man. Compared to everything that came before too, it was a real serious test of my abilities in that game. But yeah, it was really fun. And yeah, Splatoon 3 it's out now, and it's getting good reviews. People are saying it's just it's a solid, polished iteration of the franchise. Nothing groundbreaking.
I think in the Splatoon community specifically, the people are really positive about the game right now, from what I saw. And I think that was basically what they were aiming for. So it seems
right.
It's a good game.
Yeah. I've heard relevant to the single player in particular, it's been, I think it's generally been perceived as the best of the 3 entries.
Yeah,
which is
I
exciting.
heard the same. Yeah.
That's good to hear, because that was the thing that I'm actually most
big
excited about.
implications for the lore. So
I saw some people get upset about it being spoiled to them, so I can imagine.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah, okay. Well, then in that case, it's probably pretty good if people are trying to not be spoiled by it and all that. Cool. Yeah, I do want to pick up that game. But as far as what I've been playing this week, just kind of some random smaller things here and there. Some weird things that just popped up on the radar, and I'm like, okay, I guess I'll try this, change of pace. So one of those games is, we were talking about Wave Race in a previous episode, and how there hasn't been a new Wave Race game. And then someone was telling me that there's this other series of games called Riptide GP that they're similar games. They're jet ski racing games. And they are very arcadey and just kind of very casual racing experiences. I think they actually started off as mobile games originally, but you can play them on other platforms nowadays. But there was one entry in this series that came out a couple years ago called Riptide GP Renegade, it's basically a sci-fi wave race. It's actually a pretty cool premise. It's not the best game I've ever played. It's, as far as racing games go, it's pretty simple. There's some level of customization to your jet skis, you can upgrade them and make them go faster or what have you. But overall, it's a pretty straightforward racer. But I had fun with it, and it playing through it, I was making me think there's definitely room for more of these types of games in the genre. It would be nice to see what Nintendo would do, playing a version of that game with Nintendo polish would just be really fun, I think. So, I don't know. That was kind of why I wanted to check it out. It felt timely in that way.
Yeah, that sounds nice. I mean, I agree with you. I think we have some of those games that are trying to capture the vibe from the 64, the GameCube eras when Nintendo was developing games like this, but they seem to never actually capture the same level of polish, as you said.
No,
and sometimes
yeah.
it's just because Nintendo has a lot of money. And I think it would be nice to see Nintendo trying again with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, even if it's just like a smaller eShop only experience,
Yeah.
you know, I could get behind something like that. But the other game I played, and it's again like nothing like groundbreaking or anything, but I had a good time with it. It's called Flynn, Son of Crimson. It's a 2D side-scrolling platformer, more of like an action adventure game, I would say. Like there's a big focus on combat, and it's a very fast-paced game. Like from a combat mechanic, like you're always like dodging around enemies and launching them up into the air and like pulling off all these like aerial combos, and really a gorgeous game. It's got like that 2D pixel art aesthetic to it, but just extremely well animated. Everything's like very fluid. Some of the better like 2D pixel art that I've seen in the genre recently. But the only thing that is just like a shame is like all these individual pieces of the game are so good, but the game as a whole, like it just doesn't really go anywhere interesting. Like it's just kind of everything's wrapped around like the most generic fantasy story you could possibly imagine. Like person is hero goes to defeat evil thing. Like I don't know, it felt like a little bit of a missed opportunity in that area. But it was a fun game, and I ended up finishing it, so I must have enjoyed it to a degree.
It does look like it prominently features a big dog, and that alone seems like a selling point, personally.
Yes, I liked the big dog, but there was not enough of the big dog in the game. You actually have to like save the big dog, so he's kind of MIA for a good chunk of the game. But would recommend if you're hungry for that type of game. And I believe, unless anyone else has anything else to add, I believe that is our show. So thank you everyone for tuning in. This has been episode 24 of Nintendo Everything Refresh. We really appreciate everyone who's been coming back and listening to us every single week. And if you really enjoy the show, please spread the word. Tell your friends. We are here. We want to get as many people listening as possible. And we are on as many platforms as possible to try and make that convenient for y'all. So if you like our video versions, those are over on YouTube and on Spotify now. And if you prefer to listen, we're pretty much everywhere. We are on all the major podcast platforms. From Audible to Stitcher to Google Podcasts, you name it, we are pushing out an episode there every single week. With the exception of last week. But like I said, we're trying to keep that weekly news cadence for y'all. So thank you everyone so much for listening, and we will be back at you next week, hopefully with news about a Nintendo Direct that has already happened. And if not, then we'll just come at you with everything new and exciting in the world of Nintendo. See you guys later.